welcome to the LP Movie Club, where Kyle and I are going to be discussing the Tuck Rule, the latest 30 for 30
football.
I always forget, by the way, and I don't think it comes across in the stream, but for us at least, that countdown, specifically this countdown for this show, doesn't fully block out the screen. So we always end up playing around, peeking over the countdown, and then I get distracted and forget how to start the show. So we're going to be talking about the Tuck Rule. This is the new 30 for 30. I think yesterday on Marvel Time, I mentioned that it was just an ESPN documentary. I didn't realize it was 30 for 30 because it does feel really different to me than from a lot of the other 30 for 30s.
I would agree with you, except that 30 for 30 is very eclectic. I think there are different styles, different lengths for one thing. You have some full length ones, you have some half-hour ones, and you have ones like this where somewhere in the middle. And then, of course, they have the whole line of shorts as well.
Right. That's fair. Yeah, they are very different. They're all over the place. But this to me, and we'll get into it a little bit more as we move on, but this felt like it could be its own format. And I would love to see them carry this out into its own sort of 30 for 30 spinoff. But we'll get into the format of everything in a little bit. First off, I just want to talk about the Tuck Rule play that inspired this whole documentary. Kyle, I know you're not the biggest football fan, but I have been. For someone who doesn't claim to be a sports fan, you happen to know everything that's going on in the world of sports at all times. And also, I have been doing my best to make you a fantasy football addict over the last couple of years. So,
champion, baby.
Yeah. Second year champion right there. Do you remember this play? Were you watching football at this time?
I still don't really watch football except when I want to cheer for your team for you. No, I had heard about I've heard the term Tuck Rule over the years. I've seen a little bit about this film because in addition to watching 30 for 30s, I'm also a big fan of a channel called Secret Base, which was SB Nation's YouTube channel. So it's come up, but I have never taken a deep dive on it before and really understood it. And then, most of the time when I learn about these things, and I think the biggest example or, thing that I would compare it to is Des got it. And it's like, I don't care what the rule is, that they clearly caught the football. And it's like, when I watch this, I'm like, no, that's a fumble. You can't pump and then bring it back and then drop it and call it a pass. But maybe my lack of football knowledge is helpful in being like, yes, that is clearly a fumble.
I think honestly that perspective does help a lot in a lot of these cases. But I do vaguely remember watching this. This was 2002. I was about to be like 12 years old, so it was not that I have a great memory from that time period, but I do remember the talk about it and everything, and then I do remember the Super Bowl that year with the Patriots beating the Rams
after 9/11. So I mean,
right.
That's probably the most significant part that I can remember is everyone being like, oh yeah, the Patriots. I know the Yankees lost, but the Patriots won.
Yeah. So I do vaguely remember this postseason, but not specifically all the details of this play. And like you said too, like definitely never took as much of a deep dive as this documentary does. As you can imagine, an hour-long documentary breaking down one play of football that lasted all of 4 seconds, I think was the play. So something like that. Obviously we get into a lot of the details and everything. There are a lot of, like I said, I want to see this format carried out for different plays throughout sports history. But thinking about that, I was trying to come up with any other example. There's no play, I think that is quite like this one, where you had two college teammates facing off against each other in the playoffs, in the pros, that led to such a controversial call, and then it had such widespreading consequences afterwards too. Anything else come to mind? Like anything you would like to see?
I mean, not so much with those like interpersonal connections, but I'm pretty sure the city of New Orleans would like you to look at every one of their losses in depth and explain why they were wronged. And then, of course, the Des Bryant thing is another big controversial one. A lot of the things with the fill-in can't think of their names at the moment. The officials, when they had
Yes.
the fill-in, there was a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah, yeah.
controversies there.
That
But
was one of the examples that came to mind for me. Sorry, go continue.
but I was, they just announced that they've signed an extended deal with the Mannings to keep doing the ESPN2 streams and stuff like that. So I think it'd be interesting if Peyton had a show where he kind of does this like as the officiant and then brings two sides of a play together, a controversial play together, and has them hash it out kind of like this did, but with someone, as impartial as you can be, kind of
Yeah.
ruling on that, or not even necessarily ruling, but just kind of drawing that out of them as someone familiar intimately with the game.
So like arbitration with Peyton, is that kind of what you're
If Steve Harvey can come up, then I think we can get.
Yeah. No, I like it, but the play that you kind of alluded to, that Hail Mary, or not really Hail Mary, that touchdown with the Packers and Seahawks game, that with the replacement referees in there, that was one of the plays that came to mind for me as something that would be a good candidate for something like this. I don't even know what two players you would have involved, because it was a jump ball in the end zone. There were so many players involved in that, but I'd be really interested to see something like that. Also, for some reason, the Bill Buckner play where the ball went through his legs came to mind too. I know there was a 30 for 30 on that. Actually, I guess more focused on the Mets in general, but I think that would have been an interesting one to break down as well.
I mean, they already did a 30 for 30 about Steve Bartman too.
Yes.
Speaking of
that would have been another great one. Maybe have like Steve Bartman and Moises Alou, if they can safely be in a room together. I don't know how well that would go.
I don't think, Bartman's basically disappeared from public life. Although I guess the Cubs were able to contact him to get him a ring, which is really awesome. But he didn't even want to come out of hiding then.
Yeah,
and I guess they've offered many times to have him and do like an official apology at Wrigley. And I don't blame him.
Don't blame him at all. I couldn't even imagine going through something like that. But I would definitely like to see more, this sort of thing on different plays throughout the history of sports. I love the timing of this documentary for so many reasons. One, this is coming after Man in the Arena, the Tom Brady series that they did, kind of recapping his whole career, which also now hits at the right time because Tom Brady just recently announced his retirement. We'll see.
We'll see if it sticks.
We'll see if he goes full Brett Favre on us. I
was thinking MJ.
Yeah, that too. My fantasy team hopes he does, so I'm rooting for that. But
your legacy one.
Yeah. We'll see if he comes back for me. But really interesting. They give us a lot of the footage leading up to it that you would have been familiar with had you just watched Man in the Arena, or if you just remember Tom Brady's rookie year. And what happened was the Patriots' other quarterback got hurt, and that's how Brady stepped in.
A name that I actually knew.
That's an interesting one for someone who doesn't claim to be a sports fan. Drew Bledsoe is a name that comes to mind. All right, interesting. But yeah, so they are talking about we are seeing news reports of Tom Brady starting the upcoming playoff game against the Raiders, but they didn't even know his name at this time, and it's so funny to look back.
What did they call him?
They called him Scott Brady, and I don't remember if it was an ESPN.
At least it wasn't Greg.
Yeah. It's for an ESPN broadcast. They call him Scott Brady before this huge crazy game that led to so much. So I thought that was really, really interesting. And if you want more of that sort of stuff, highly recommend Man in the Arena. That was just an awesome docu-series. I don't remember how many episodes they did for that. At least 5 or 6, something like that. But really entertaining. There's a review up on laughingplace.com for that as well. I liked that this was mostly focused on Charles Woodson and Tom Brady, but that we still got to hear from other people involved. We got to hear from the referee who made the call, some of their teammates on both sides of this game. And of course, Bill Belichick, as excited as ever throughout this documentary.
Very him to smile.
I think he does crack a smile just a little bit in this.
Well, that's how he was able to keep winning all these years.
Exactly.
That Family Guy is just so outdated.
there's yeah, there's a moment in this actually where I looked at watching it, I was just like, Bill Belichick is the perfect sports villain. Like they're going through and everybody's sharing their opinion on this play and like, oh, it was a fumble, it was an incomplete pass. Obviously they're going to have their biases, and Bill Belichick just stares directly into the camera and says, "Much ado about nothing." And like it feels like he was like the mafia leader that like he pulled the strings and he made that call happen. It's so funny the way that he delivers that line.
Yeah. I mean, it also, when I think of Belichick, I forget who they're playing, but they do like, they take 2 penalties on purpose, and you can just see him kind of smirking on the sideline because he's like getting away with something.
Yeah, yeah. There's
It's like he's just this evil, of course.
there's
And
a
Robert
reason
Kraft is in the movie too.
yes, he is. Yeah, a few times he gets his word in there too. But yeah, there's a few interesting moments with Belichick here. We talked, or I mentioned a few times now how much I loved the format of this documentary, but let's actually sort of explain how this one worked and why this was so different. This is basically let's say 90% of it right here. It's these two guys sitting on a couch in what we assume to be Tom Brady's house. Maybe
Tom
it's
Brady's ridiculous house.
yeah. We'll talk about the house a little bit too, but yeah. So it's really just these two guys, the two guys that were involved in the play. Obviously, Tom Brady, the quarterback who was hit, and Charles Woodson, the cornerback who was coming on a blitz and made the hit. And I love the way they did this. They simplified it so much. It's cool that we're going through other examples and stuff, and maybe this wouldn't work with some other athletes or anybody else that would be involved. But with these two guys being friends prior to this play, it makes a lot of sense that they're going to be friendly together now and be able to look back at this in this way. So it works so well. And I again, just really hope we get to see more of that in the future.
Yeah, and it's still amicable. I mean, there's no shortage if you look on YouTube of Woodson talking crap about about this for years on all
Yeah.
sorts of shows. But it's nothing against Tom personally. Like, of course, Tom has to like keep up appearances and he can't admit it. Although he kind of alludes to the fact that he kind of knows he's right. Like, what's he say near the end? Like, you tackled me into a pass or something like that.
Yeah. 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 There's a few moments where
Or he messes up his words and says it was
yeah.
a fumble. It's like, yeah, see?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, because he's demonstrating for him. He's like, if I had tucked the ball back in, I wouldn't have fumbled it. But see, if you hit the ball now, and he hits it, and he drops the ball, and he says fumble. And he's like, yeah, exactly.
It's like, yeah, but oh, look, when I let go of the ball, it falls. It's like, this isn't very scientific here.
Yeah, yeah. It was funny to see these guys reenacting the play and getting so into their discussion. And yeah, there are moments where I do believe that Brady sees this as they made the right call because of this crazy rule. And before we even get into that anymore, really, I'll kind of try and explain the best I possibly can.
I don't understand it still. That's why I'm like, just ignore it. It's a fumble.
So Brady is throwing and tries to throw. He's going to throw, and then he tries to pull the ball down, which there's some more details shared about that we'll get into also. But as he is pulling the ball down, his arm is still kind of moving forward as he's coming down. And the tuck rule, is that once a quarterback's arm starts moving forward, the act of throwing isn't complete until he either throws the ball or tucks the ball back into it against his body or with his other hand. So before that ball hits his body or his other hand, if it's an incomplete pass, if the ball comes out of his hand in any way, which is such a crazy rule. And
at least it's more specific than a football move. But
yeah, I do. There are some really bad rules in the NFL. Some have been corrected, so we'll give them some
like
credit.
This one, the tuck rule is no longer.
Yeah, exactly. So and they show you this play at every possible angle.
And angle
breaks it
makes a
down.
difference. There are times where it
Oh yeah,
does look like he is, in the process of actually throwing a forward pass, but other ones it's clear that he like pumps and then is trying to
yeah,
bring it back in.
yeah, and it's like there are even moments where Charles Woodson is like, oh, you definitely touched the ball with your left hand, and you see a different angle, like, oh, okay, all right, I'll give you that. You didn't get it to your other hand. So no, it's just really interesting seeing the play break down from so many different angles. Also, I love that the first thing I noticed, because they start off this whole documentary with like a sort of dramatized version of the play where they're kind of like, it almost looks partially animated. And you see, and the first thing I noticed was Charles Woodson's hand hit Brady's helmet. And I was like, oh, none of this mattered. This should have been a penalty right there anyway. The whole thing is moot at this point. It's a moot point.
It's like a cow's opinion. It doesn't matter.
But yeah, so and they eventually notice that Brady tries to trip one of the players on the Raiders, and so they're like, okay, offsetting penalties. And Woodson says, that would have been better. I wish that would have happened as opposed to the tuck rule situation. So yeah, that was funny. That was a good moment in this as well. Mm-hmm. I was talking about the details that we learned about this play as Brady was going to throw the pass. Eric Allen, another cornerback on the Raiders, who was also featured in this documentary, explains that the play prior to this, he overheard the play call for the Patriots, which I thought was so interesting because the Patriots have been universally hated because of the quote unquote Spygate, where they were basically learning other teams' playbooks and recording practices.
It was the Jets though, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, that's we don't need to get into that, but so yeah, this whole instance happened because Eric Allen knew the play call. And he told his team what it was. He said he's going to jump the route. If we bring a blitz from the other side, you're going to have time. You're going to get to him. And that's what allowed Woodson to get through so cleanly and force this incomplete pass / fumble, depending on what side you're on. So I thought that was a really interesting point as well, and completely changes the dynamic of everything. So that was really cool detail to throw in there.
The game within the game, as he calls it.
Yes, that is the competitive way to look at it, whereas most fans would call it cheating. But
I don't know. Because what's the rule in baseball? Like, you can, if you figure out the other team's signs, it's cool as long as you're not using like technology.
Yeah, there's any outside.
As long as you don't have a camera aimed and you're banging a trash can, it's cool.
Yeah.
And then they'll change their signs because they realize that their signs.
That's a thing that happened in Major League Baseball, and you have not corrected it. Belichick does also give an example of why he knew, as soon as he saw the replay, he's like, oh, I knew immediately this was going to be ruled an incomplete pass. There was this play earlier in the season, and they look back at this play with them and the Jets, and I'm watching that, and I was like, that's a completely different play. It was not even close. The quarterback's still trying to throw the ball in that situation. And it's just funny that they're like, well, Belichick said that, so we're going to run with this footage and show you, even though it's.
Yeah, no, I noticed that as well, being like, that doesn't look the
same. So we like I said, we do have to talk about the house. It was because it is really just these two guys sitting in this room for most of the time. But you could tell even just this one, and I'll put this back up again real quick. Just this one shot, you can tell this house is incredible. And there are several shots from outside as well, where you can just see the scale of it. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. But then, once they step outside, we see a little bit of the outside at the very beginning, but then we see more of it towards the end, and then the very, very end, we're just like, this thing is crazy.
Yeah, it's that the pool, if you want to even call it a pool, like I should have gotten a shot of the outside of the house. I didn't think to do that, but I don't even. It's funny. Like, this is a documentary about football, but like, yeah, we're gonna be interested in this house because it's ridiculous, and there's just like this lazy river pool thing running through.
It goes like inside.
Yeah,
it's the coolest thing.
And I'm so curious if this is Tom Brady's house, or if this was like a staged
Or
thing.
it could be a 4 seasons for all we know.
Right, yeah, that's honestly like it's that size, so it very well could be.
But I mean, on that note, like the fact that we realized that he could conceivably just have that ridiculous house is because of the career he's had. And when I saw the commercial for this, they kind of teased like, oh, if this play had gone the other way, Brady might not have the career that he had. And that immediately sounds like hyperbole, but I thought they actually made a really decent
Yeah,
case. Like, I still don't think it would have been like we've never heard of the name Tom Brady, but that still might have been delayed. Plenty of things could happen if he's sitting on the bench for longer and wants a trade. So I thought that was actually really interesting the way that they did probably the last not even third of the movie, um, and kind of made the case as to why you know this actually was a bigger deal with butterfly effect if you
yeah.
stretch it out to see what would have happened in the NFL.
Yeah, and that's my favorite part about this documentary. Aside like there's this awesome format and like the whole way that they have these two friends reenacting this whole thing. But the best part of it to me was that they allowed. This is the thing fans do, right? We talk about like if this happened differently, what would have changed? And but people like in the industry are often just like, well, it doesn't matter. None of it would have like it still would have stuck to the same way. But this allows you to be a fan and play out this situation. And they actually even go as far as to record voiceover for for like what could have happened had this been ruled a fumble and the Raiders win. And you see Woodson's point of view where the Raiders go on to win the Super Bowl. He's a Raider for life, which he eventually played for other teams. He won a Super Bowl with the Packers eventually. And just think about how that would have changed his life. You're not just talking about a different team you're playing for. You're living in a different city, a different part of the country. And
Well, he still would have moved with the Raiders anyway.
well, sure.
But no, it's funny because when that montage of him started, I was like, man, how did they get him holding the trophy? Like, that's really impressive. And then I didn't realize he actually won one. I'm like, oh, okay, so there's did some recoloring. Right. That's a little bit more understandable.
Yeah, otherwise would have been some really good Charles Woodson CGI, I guess. But
I think if they did too much of that sort of that CGI like reimagining, it probably would have gotten old. But I thought they did just the right amount, just doing these quick little montages, kind of play events. I thought it worked well.
Yeah, I totally agree, and it gets really interesting. I think when you talk about the Tom Brady side of it, and you mentioned it a little bit, I totally think it would have completely altered his career.
Belichick says no.
What was that?
Belichick says no. Belichick says it wouldn't have made a difference. I guess
Belichick says it was much ado about nothing, and
yeah, I don't know how Drew Bledsoe feels about that. No, I was always going to bench you.
Right.
I knew from that 3 weeks that Tom Brady was the guy, even though he blew the game with a fumble.
Right. Yeah, I mean, at the very least, maybe they do start Brady the following year, but at the very least, he's short one Super Bowl, right? So that changes that. He doesn't go into the next season with the same amount of confidence being a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Who knows how much that changes? At the most, he might have been benched, and he might have lived out his career as the backup quarterback of the New England Patriots. And who knows how different things would have gone, what other teams would have won Super Bowls, how that would have impacted where players went, and just how. I mean, you look at it now. Tom Brady is he's the GOAT, right? Like, there's no question about it. It's unanimous at this point that he is the greatest quarterback of all time. He is one of the greatest professional athletes this country has ever seen. And which is funny because they make a lot of points about him not being very athletic in this documentary. So it's really interesting to speculate about how much would have changed about that. And I really like that they allowed us to be fans and they allowed them to be fans in that situation and kind of look into that. And that made me think a little bit too. And this is, kind of how my brain works. Is there a moment for you that would be like that pivotal tuck rule moment? Do you have anything in mind? I have this is, the kind of thing that I think about on a daily basis. So is there one thing that, who knows if it had changed just slightly could have completely altered your life?
So when Becca and we met in 2000, like in Christmas time, but we didn't talk very much. We just had some mutual friends, so we didn't spend a ton of time together. The next time I went out to Florida, we spent a lot of time together, and then from the point we officially started dating we got started dating in January, and we got married in October of that same year. And there was one point for her birthday, I decided to surprise her by flying out to Florida in February, the next month after we had started dating. And that kind of, accelerated our relationship from there. But the only reason that I was able to do that was because I was working background and I didn't get booked for that upcoming Monday. And so then I was like, okay, well, if I'm not working this show on Monday, then let me go on to Hotwire and book a flight.
Right.
So I do wonder if that didn't happen and I didn't go out, and that again, it might have just been a delay, but maybe things would have been different for us.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about.
And that was her birthday is tomorrow, so it's
yeah,
all
look at
coming
that.
together.
I absolutely planned that. That's exactly why I asked this question, because I knew what your answer was going to be. No, I could absolutely give a similar answer as starting to dating Jess and stuff like that, and how that would have impacted my life for sure. The one that I had in mind though is in 2015. We decided to go out on a Friday night to one of those indoor trampoline parks. And we were on the trampoline. I grew up on a trampoline. I loved it. I was very comfortable on trampolines. I was there for all of 5 minutes before I absolutely obliterated my ankle. And that led to me being on my couch, unable to walk for 5 months afterwards.
Wow.
Which led to me writing a lot of freelance and working for freelancing for an entertainment website. And that sent me down this career path that allowed me to eventually work for Laughing Place. So who knows, had I not broken my ankle, who knows what I would be doing right now.
Wow. 5 months. That's a long time.
It was not just it was broken in 2 places, dislocated, and I tore every tendon in my ankle. So it was bad. That's why I use the term obliterated. I think that is the actual medical term. Let me see here. We have, this is, you know what? It's Rebecca. It's safe to put the comment up, I think. So if it was Doobie, I would have read it first. So when I did something completely out of character, I said to a stranger at Disneyland whose name I recognized from a Disney discussion group I was a part of. Yeah. So, and it's crazy to think that moment actually impacts our lives too in a huge way. So, oh, she has more of the story as well. That guy was a computer programmer who encouraged me to write about Disneyland adventures, and now I work with you two. So yeah, there she goes. There you go. We have our Laughing Place origin story there as well. So yeah, you not working on a Monday, me jumping on a trampoline, and Tom Brady not fumbling the football, all on the same level there.
Well, he fumbled the football. It just was ruled a fumble.
So that was what I wanted to close out on, is obviously you feel that was a fumble.
I liked how they pulled the crew too. And anyone who raised their hand and said it was a fumble, he's like, Raiders fan, Raiders fan.
Yeah,
there's that many Raiders fans on this film crew.
Yeah, all of the Raiders fan bases on this film crew. There are a lot of funny moments between these two, especially like during the credits too. They let them, go on with some behind the scenes stuff, which is pretty funny. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a really, really fun. It's still weird to me calling it a 30 for 30. It just feels so different. But you did make a good point. Like 30 for 30 tends to be very different. But yeah, I highly recommend this. This was, let me put this up one more time here. This debuted on ESPN this past Sunday and is now available on ESPN Plus if you want to check it out. Again, the Tuck Rule, I really enjoyed it. I mean, I take it you like this one too. I know you watch a lot of 30 for 30s, probably actually more than I do. How does this rank as far as?
That's a good question. I mean, I think my favorite, the one I think is probably the most well done, the most I always say is Fantastic Lies, about the Duke Lacrosse case.
Okay.
But that one obviously goes a little bit beyond just being about sports, and so I think that kind of gives it an unfair advantage. Whereas this one being as singular as it is and fully focused on sports, I think does make it unique. And I, this is the kind of thing. As much as I love, like I was saying, Secret Base and stuff, where they can tell these stories, having the leverage of an ESPN to get these two players, including like Tom Brady. Like as much as I love Secret Base, I don't think they're going to be able to book Tom Brady up for one of their videos. So that really brings something special to it. So I think, if I were to rewatch the catalog and rank them all, I think it would probably be pretty high just for, the novelty of it.
Yeah, I would agree. I haven't watched nearly as many 30 for 30s, but this is one of the ones that I've enjoyed the most, especially as far as the ones that I've reviewed for Laughing Place, which again, you can see the full review up on laughingplace.com right now of the Tuck Rule.
I like Rebecca's comment.
So you're telling me the Tuck Rule is the sports version of Sliding Doors.
Are you not familiar with that movie?
I am not, no.
I believe it's Gwyneth Paltrow, and it's like two different things, whether she makes the train or doesn't. It might not be Gwyneth Paltrow, but I think that's the idea. There's also a Frasier episode that does that.
Oh, okay.
Rips it off, basically.
My question was going to be, if it was Gwyneth Paltrow, does she remember that she was in the movie? Or
I mean, that's always a gamble with her.
All right, we've devolved into nonsense. Oh, yep, confirmation. You are correct.
Goop.
Gwyneth Paltrow. For the record, by the way, I believe the way the rule is written and read several times throughout this documentary, it was an incomplete pass. I think the rule was terrible, just horribly written, and like we said before, has been since removed from the rule book.
And just in case Doobie's watching, did Des catch the football as well?
Yes. I mean,
okay.
Yeah. I don't want that result, but yeah, I think he did catch the ball. Yeah, and again, you can check out the review of Tuck Rule on laughingplace.com right now. I thought it was interesting though that the rule change. I went and I looked. So 29 teams voted to remove the rule, while one voted to keep it. It was not the New England Patriots that voted to keep it. They actually abstained from the vote. As them and Washington abstained from the vote. It was actually the Pittsburgh Steelers that voted to keep it, which I don't
makes sense.
Yeah, so
I don't know much about football, but I know to hate the Steelers.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah. If I've taught you anything, I hope that's it.
Them and the Cowboys, but some people might disagree about that one. Some people
Cowboys,
who tangentially employ me.
You don't have to hate the Cowboys so much anymore these days. Back in the 90s, you had to hate the Cowboys.
And it's funny. I remember growing up, the neighbors across the street were Cowboys fans, and the ones next to us were Steelers fans. And there was a Super Bowl in the 90s where they played each other. So, no one wins there.
Right. That sounds fun. Speaking of the Super Bowl.
Who dey?
Definitely can't wait. If you don't hear from me on Monday, I'm fine. Just give me a day to recover. Before that, though, we do have tomorrow. We've got Drafting Place coming back as we prepare for both the big game and Valentine's Day. I'll leave it at that. Check it out tomorrow at 8:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern. Come back and see what we're drafting this time around.
I'm wondering if you reversed that, but I can't remember what you said.
8:30. Did I say? I don't know. 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific is what
that's
what I'm looking for. Either that or we're doing some time travel.
7:30 Central.
7:30 Central. Yeah, sorry. That one does matter for Kyle. And maybe a few others out there. I'm not sure. But
yeah, we're my Minnesota people.
Drafting Place tomorrow. And then we've got Disney Trivia Live on Saturday. Am I missing anything else? I think that's everything we got.
I think that's good.
Yeah. All right. Anything else on Tuck Rule before we wrap things up?
I recommend checking it out. Even if you're not a sports person, you might find it interesting.
Yeah, totally agree. And that's the case.
And even if you hate Tom Brady, because very likable in this movie.
He is.
He's being wrong.
Likable. But yeah, all right. So again, I totally agree with Kyle. By the way, definitely recommend it. It is available on ESPN Plus right now, so you can check that out. And again, the review is up on laughingplace.com. So thank you, everyone, and we will see you all real soon. Bye.